By the end of today, you will know exactly what to do if you are in a toxic relationship. Hi, this is Leah Richeimer of the Ladies TalkShow. Thank you so much for being here today. We have an awesome show. It's kind of deep. It's kind of heavy stuff. So we're going to try and keep it like happy or not happy. That's not right. Not happy. Toxic related. Happy. No, definitely not happy. But we do want you to know that we're here for you. Hey, guys. Hello. We want you to know that we're here for you. We're going to do this together. We're going to get through this together, because these are some very, very deep issues. Okay, we're going to start with I got actually a bunch of email questions. By the way, if you have questions, type them in, whatever, write them in email, info@ladiestalkshow.com. Type in your questions. I will cover them in a future show.
Her question is, who says it's on her? Maybe us girls don't always have to do all the hard work. Maybe some are better off leaving. I'm asking because a friend of mine is going through a very rough marriage, and everywhere she turns to, she's told, I can show you how you can improve, what you can do, what you can change. It's disheartening because that's the mentality these days. But her husband is the monster. Whoa, big word.
I know.
Monster.
Are you guys hearing that?
And she can't change a thing.
Right.
Wow. Hello, my gift of mikvah. We love you. We love you guys.
Okay. Wait, what was the end? What was
that? Was it. The end is
and she can't change a thing.
So basically, you're saying that she can resuscitate her marriage in 6 months, but everything is all on her. Her, and she's saying, hello, like, what about the man? And if the man is terrible, what do you do? So
I'm going to separate the question into two parts. The first part is about monster and the husband being a monster, and the second part about how come it's on the woman. Like, hello, thank you. Like, he's the monster, she's the victim. Is she completely just like, and now she's made responsible for taking care of his bad behavior? Not happening. So let me tell you a couple of awesome things. The first thing is to clarify what a toxic relationship is, so that every relationship can have a toxic interchange. Is that the right word?
No, toxic.
Are you guys awake?
Toxic. Toxic. Huh? Yeah. Oh, to elements. Dynamic.
Toxic, right.
Yeah.
An element would be like an ongoing thing floating through the whole thing.
Okay,
I'm saying incident. Like
incident.
One thing
Fine.
you're talking to your husband, and whatever. And you're like, would you shut up or whatever? I hope people aren't saying that to their husband. If you are, you need to learn how to stop saying that. But you can have toxic interchanges.
Well, I love you, Leah. I love the fact that you think somebody saying, will you shut up to their husband is the bad toxic thing. I've heard so much worse.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that's toxic to say, would you shut up? I'm just saying masters, what we're learning here, being masters of ourselves.
Yes.
Why? So we can be goody two-shoes and get gold stars after we die? No. We are becoming masters of ourselves so that we can have the best life possible. We can maximize our own potential. We can be the powerful women that are inside of us. Whatever self-esteem issues you have, whatever things I'm not good enough, and whatever stuff has been talking in your head, you can talk your way out of it. And we're going to teach, what we teach is step-by-step ways to be the person you want to be, so that you can self-actualize, you can maximize your potential, and most importantly, you can be happier. And that comes from closeness to our people around us, our husbands starting with our husband, and closeness to everyone around us. And how do you do that? Is by having mastery over yourself. So if you're the kind of person who's always telling everyone to shut up, and you're telling your husband to shut up, nobody here is going to argue that it would be better if you weren't that person. Meaning if you worked your way out of that and worked on your habits so you were a better person and didn't do that, that would be better, not just for yourself, but for everybody around you, so that you are happier. Okay, is that clear?
Yes.
Good. So now, you're so sweet. So here's the thing. What is a toxic relationship? Again, we're having toxic interactions. You can have whatever, you can have a thing. Then you go back and, I'm sorry, I really lost it. I didn't eat yet, or, you're really a jerk. No, you have, it's very upsetting what happened, and I'm just in a bad mood, and I'm sorry. You come back to harmony with it, okay? A toxic relationship means there's never coming back to harmony, because there wasn't harmony to begin with. There's no harmony. So I'm going to give you a couple of thoughts about that, about how to know if it's a toxic relationship. A toxic relationship is it kind of causes damage all the time. Like you're hurting each other, he's hurting you, you're hurting him. Maybe it's one way, maybe he's just keeps hurting you and criticizing you, whatever, and then you burn his dinner or whatever. No, we all burn our dinner. But I'm saying, passive aggressive behaviors, all kinds of stuff that goes on when it's just damaging. A healthy relationship should cause you to grow. It should, you should feel better about yourself. You should feel better about him. You're moving in a trajectory that's better and better and better. That's a healthy relationship. Toxic is it's just damaging, and you never get your, you never get your air above water. You never have that time where you're coming back to harmony, or you're just happy to be together. There's always underlying tension. Now there could be a lot of tension even in a healthy relationship if you're going through crisis or you have unresolved issues, or if you need therapy together and you can't get him into therapy. There could be conflicts. I'm not saying that. Toxic is just downhill all the way. So let me give some signs of a toxic relationship. It's obviously toxic relationship would be any kind of abuse, whether that's physical, whether that's emotional, or whether that's verbal abuse. And it was funny because I was thinking spiritual abuse. I never heard of. So I don't know. I made something up. We need another. What are these things called? Props. Prop for spiritual abuse, but
we're gonna put a halo on top of it, on your head.
I'm just saying, but it's kind of like there's that's if I was thinking like a husband could kind of spiritually thwart his wife, like she could say, oh, for Rosh Hashanah, I really, really wanted to just grow in XYZ. I wanted to daven more. I wanted to, she wants to grow and get closer to God or whatever, and her husband will cut her down and say, oh, come on, you're going to make a promise and 2 days later you're going to forget it, or whatever.
Or even worse, you want to work on davening, there's a lot more things you need to work on, lady.
Before that, yeah, exactly. So anyway, I don't know if there's such a thing of spiritual abuse. I would, maybe it's a subcategory of emotional abuse. But in any case, these kinds of abuse, for sure, that's in a toxic relationship. And if there's physical abuse or even verbal abuse, you need to get help. You really need to get help. Email us. We'll try, and we don't. Wouldn't it be great if we had a database of people around the world that was in one place? But we don't have the bandwidth to do that. But we really feel for you, and we'll try to help you. But you have to get yourself help, because nobody can help if you're not helping yourself. Okay, so that's the first thing. The next thing for a sign of a toxic relationship is ongoing constructive criticism. If your husband is constantly, or actually if you're what if the people listening are the part of the toxic relationship?
No
there's
joke.
always a two-way street. I'm going to get to that in a
Exactly.
minute or whatever.
Exactly.
So we'll get there. But let's just talk about
You're
a
always
wife
criticizing.
You're the one who's always, a euro sounds like a euro dollar. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
you're giving me some money. Okay, so the fast-moving show here. Hello. Okay, so the point is that if the husband is giving ongoing constructive criticism, sign of a toxic relationship. If he belittles you, puts you down, makes you feel badly about yourself, controlling. Where are you going? What are you doing? Can I look at your cell phone? Who'd you call? Where are you? How come you're going there? How come you're going out with your friends? Wouldn't you rather be with me? Very controlling. You never feel safe in the relationship. You're always walking on eggshells. You don't know when they're going to burst and scream and whatever. And we talked about last week, how micromanaging, like a husband will say, oh, did you pay that bill? And you're like, oh, thank you for reminding me. Or he could say, did you pay that bill? And you're like, of course I did. Stop micromanaging me. So a guy never knows. So that's a little bit different thing, and we need to work on that. Again, the answer to that is using humor and like that. Okay, I'm just giving these PSs so that you can understand the different subtleties of this. But this one is a very, very a crucial thing about feeling like you're walking on eggshells all the time. Now, I did have a woman, and she said to me, Leah, every time I'm with this person, I feel like I have to walk on eggshells. And I'm like, you know what? What right do you have with other people not to walk on eggshells? Meaning, we are much too cavalier, and maybe it's from movies and TV and books and whatever, that everybody just crushes everybody left, right, and center. They just barrel through like a bull in a china shop, and the sensitivity is gone. But we really should be watching what we say. Like we should be walking on eggshells all the time, not in a miserable, like I can't be myself and I can't relax. Okay, but in taking care of other people. But if you're in your home and you do not know what's going to be next. You don't know whether when your husband walks in the door, whether he's going to be screaming at you, yelling at you, happy at you, and there's that kind of a not feeling safe. That I would call a toxic relationship. The main other thing to think about in a toxic relationship is that nothing ever gets resolved. That your communication is so bad. Anytime you try and communicate, this is upsetting me, that's troubling me. Can we go to therapy? Can we get help? By the way, when you say this, it really hurts my feelings. Any type of communication you try and have with your husband, it doesn't work. It's either he escapes or he puts you down or he puts it back on you or he gets defensive. You can never have that satisfaction of really genuinely connecting and feeling heard. Did I make everybody depressed?
No, yeah. It's crazy.
Great
the crazy
earnings.
part is that it's meaning when they first got married, right? They couldn't have been unless it's a person who has low self-esteem and maybe got into a situation where they were abused or had abuse in any form as a child, and they sort of went towards that. But usually you go and get into marriage, you're not dealing with this. So, how does a relationship then suddenly become that? If your husband's not critical, how does he suddenly become this terribly critical,
So
hard
here's
person?
the thing, and we're going to get to what, it could be maturity issues, but the husband could also be a sociopath or, have pathological or mental illness. And one of the things about sociopaths, I'm not an expert in this. I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever. I know our Masora. I know our 3,000-year-old track record of success in marriage. But, a lot of the psychiatry things I'm not an expert in. And one of the things is, my understanding of a sociopath is that they have an on button and an off button. So, the first, they're charming and, warm and bring you in and whatever. And then they turn
Once
after
they
get you.
Right,
so
right.
it's kind of creepo.
Yeah, Golden
So-
Path Organizing said midlife crisis maybe.
Yeah, that's definitely.
No joke. Midlife crisis on a man, but never on a guy, because we're hormonal at least once a month, and then there's menopause. Forget it. He's if it's midlife crisis for him,
what are we gonna do?
What are we? Yeah.
Okay, so fine. So I'm going to give you some ways to analyze this a little deeper, as you're saying. So first of all, you just want to think also of one thing: a healthy relationship nurtures your strengths. A toxic relationship focuses on your weaknesses.
I like that.
Yeah. So it's very, very powerful. And it's very important to understand that if you're listening to this show and you're like, oh my gosh, this is me, oh my gosh, I really am in a toxic relationship, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do about that. But here's what you need to ask yourself. There's certain behaviors that your husband can have that could be very, very workable. Like if your husband, if you have a toxic relationship because your husband, you have lack of communication, as I was saying, that can be taught. That can be learned. That can be surmounted. Is that ideal? No, but it's a workable situation. Same thing. If he has immaturity, sometimes, guys, they come out, women sometimes are tested. They go through difficult times, or they're bullied in high school and they, work through, and then they learn more about themselves. They get close with their sisters, or they get therapy themselves, or they go off to seminary, they go off to gap year, or they get somewhere. A man could also, but sometimes a man will go through, he's taken care of by his mother the whole time, then he's taking care of whatever he's learning, or he's in school, whatever happening, he's sort of taken care of. And then he gets married. I'm not saying that a man should be independent, and that's how that would do that, because sometimes guys are independent and they're still immature. So women tend to mature much earlier, and that's true. I don't know. We could Google it. Up to their 20s or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
It could be
more
that,
till 25. Literally.
And then it kind of evens
yeah, that's
out.
why women are always
like a little bit of step ahead.
Even
So
from
if you're-
young ages, little girls are more mature.
Yeah,
than
more
boys.
mature. So the thing is that if your husband all these toxic types of habits and behaviors are because of his immaturity, again, that's something you guys can work on and grow on and learn, and I will show you how to do that. It could be that he's toxic from a dysfunctional childhood. baggage that he brought into the marriage. You didn't know. That's how the role models he saw. That's maybe he lost a parent or something like that, and the other parent couldn't manage it exactly, wasn't on top of letting him know how to take care of his wife, how to take care of a woman. I mean, anyone who's got little boys, when they do something great, you need to say something like, "You're going to make somebody a great husband someday."
Oh, I like that.
Seriously, I mean, it grows them in a way that, oh wow, this is who I am. This is part of my identity. Rather than saying, "Oh, your wife is going to be miserable because you did that." Don't even go there. But when your child, a boy, does something good, and same thing with a girl. If a girl does something great, say, "You're going to make somebody a great wife someday." A girl's a little harder to hear because she wants to just feel like she's for herself in the teenage years or whatever. I'm not an expert in child raising, but I'm just saying from our sources, there's a great deal to be said for raising men who understand that they need to be taking care of a wife in the future. A woman sort of knows that intuitively. Okay, fine. So if he's like the way he is because of dysfunctional a childhood, again, that can be worked on. It might be hard. It might be really traumatized. He might have gone through crises and so forth. So it's not like, that's an easy path, but it's easier than the one I'm about to get to, which is that if there is real pathology, real mental illness, he's a sociopath or something, very dramatic.
Well, can we not what's it called? Because it's such a hot topic. So can we separate that? Because I feel like mental illness is a disease like a physical illness. It could be like a cancer, meaning it's something that someone is not a sociopath, they're depressed, or they're bipolar, or they have schizophrenia. That's a real illness that they're dealing with. And if they're on medication, there's wonderfully successful marriages with men that have worked through it. I personally know of people that struggled and got the help they needed, and they're soaring. So I feel like we should just separate sociopath with mental illness.
Yes. Oh, you mean a sociopath from mental illness?
Yeah,
separate that. Oh, yeah.
Because I feel like I don't want anyone
I didn't, if I sounded like I was putting it together.
Sociopath, mental illness, and then I'm like, no. It's like two separate.
Thank you very much.
So
yes, I did not mean to
mental illness
converge
is definitely.
Thank you. I stand corrected. So yes, I meant a mental illness or depression or anything those.
Fine.
But also I lump those together because those need a psychiatrist.
Correct.
Or a really good therapist or medication or whatever. And not all depression needs medication. Often it does. Depression. I'll give you the 2 seconds on depression. Get 10 minutes of sun a day. I don't know why this works. They sound like, yeah, of course, but it's scientifically proven, and they're not even sure why. 10 minutes of sun a day, eat 3 meals a day, get exercise. Oh no!
Yeah, you had 5. I know. We have a show on it. Go look it up.
There's a show. Okay, hold on.
Was it friends or surround yourself with? No.
Oh, okay. Anyway, that's part of
how to
healthy.
3 are good.
3 for now. Okay. Anyway, but back to the issue is that if you have a mental health issue or a sociopath, a more serious issue like that, that needs a real professional. And a lot of women say, "Oh, but my husband would never go," and whatever. First of all, I hear it. Go yourself. But second of all, the way women usually get their husbands into therapy is usually, the way they attempt, is usually by bullying them, threatening them, not all the time. Sometimes they say, listen, we can't solve this ourselves. We've been trying, and they still won't go. So I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying, if you have tried and it hasn't succeeded, think about how you've approached it, and if you would have gone if your husband had approached you that way. Many times people are very demanding, very angry. They're bringing out so much whatever, like, you need to be fixed, and that's why we need to go, and that's going to always backfire. So, when people, my husband won't go, I'm like, try again. But how did you do it? How did you say it? What did you say? When did you say it? Was it, were you really thinking? Like last week, the whole show, the comedy show, the communication comedy show, we talked about how to say things. So how you're going to say it is going to make a huge difference in your ability to get him to therapy. But in any case, those kinds of issues definitely need therapy. Now, the first ones I mentioned, the dysfunctional childhood, lack of communication, immaturity, those kinds of things, If you have a fantastic track record in your marriage of good communication and your relationship has been great and whatever, you might be able to solve it yourself. I still would say you might be able to solve it, but it'll take a lot longer than if you have a third party. Again, these are for issues of toxic relationship. These are ingrained habits. And the problem with toxic relationship is that the longer it goes unchecked and the more a husband feels like he's gotten away with it or that's just the pattern, like the lot harder it is to change. So in other words, it's kind of like the nature of reality shifts by what's acceptable in the partnership. If your husband were to scream at you and you didn't sit down with him to begin with and say, never again. Never again. So if you didn't say that, and the first time you just took it and you're trying to be a good wife or whatever, and you know, maybe you didn't have the self-esteem, maybe you didn't have the strength, maybe you didn't have the, what's the word, like... Strength? No, I said strength. Backbone or something. You know, just the inner confidence. Yeah, that's the word I was thinking. Boundaries. You don't have boundaries, and if you don't have the right boundaries and the right confidence, then you might have blown it, and you might have blown it for year after year after year, and now you're putting your foot down like it's going to be a little bit challenging. So again, the longer it's gone on, the more it might be for that you need some therapy. And I would just tell you one thing about therapy, because I know everybody, it's so easy to say, oh, go get therapy, right? So the expense, the time, the cajoling your husband into it, it's like, Leah, that's easier said than done. Excuse me, you know? So I hear that. But once you've gone through it, and people, if you have, well, you may not know friends who's gone to the therapy, but when people go through therapy, they come out and they're like, oh my gosh, it was a tough 6 months, and it was emotional, and I had to deal with stuff, and we're so much happier now. We're just so much happier. It's just so much better. Like, I can't believe how I lived before and how I put up with living like that before. So when you go to therapy, there's some therapists who you walk, you know, it has to be a shidduch. It has to be a match. There has to be, both of you have to really like the person you're working with, or if your husband won't go and you're seeing the person alone, it has to be the right person. And it might take going to 1, 2, or 3, or 4 people before you get that person. And that sometimes can happen. But once you're there, you get, actually, anyone who you're seeing, you walk in, you say, here is the issue that I'd like to clarify or address or resolve. Here's the thing. I'm hoping we can solve it in 3 to 4 months, which really means 5 to 6 months maybe. But if you say I'm here to solve it, they'll think you're on the 2-year plan. No. Not that I don't believe in 2-year plans, and there's some things that are so dysfunctional and sad, whatever, that they might take that. If you have really personality disorders or, you know, some other issues, you know, it might take that long. But for you to understand that, you know, for them to understand that you are on a mission, you want to accomplish that mission, and maybe it'll get sidetracked a little here for 1 or 2 sessions or whatever, but basically this is what you're here to cover. That's the most effective way to get out of therapy. And you can Google it and say, what's the best way to get the most effect out of therapy? Okay, something is in my eye. It's driving me crazy.
We can't see it.
You can't see it. It only tortures me, but everybody else is happy. Okay, fine. Right. As long as everybody else is happy, we're good.
Someone has to, because I know you used to say this in your class all the time, they need at least 6 months before they can say,
I'm getting there.
Good.
You're jumping
ahead.
No,
good.
Okay, it's fine. Okay, fine. You're so funny. You know my material.
Yeah,
now, okay,
I've been with you for so long, and I still say to people, I'm still working on it. I always say to people, I'm a work in progress. There's not much progress.
No, don't put yourself down.
But it's true. I need to be around you a lot more, I think.
You're so young. Okay, fine. It's good. No, it's good. You know, but also it bumps us up to the next level because you get where I'm coming from. Okay. Second point from this one lady. Why is everyone focusing on what the wife should do rather than on what the husband should do? I hear it. So if you have to know, if I'm talking to women, I put all the responsibility on you. You're 100% responsible for taking care of this, right? If someone was talking to men, they'd be like, you're 100% responsible for taking care of it. So that's what it is. It's not that you're any more picked out, I always look over there when I can't think of it. It's not that you're any more put on the spot. He would also be on the spot, but I'm talking to you. So that's the first thing. Also, every woman has to honestly assess her contribution in the relationship. What am I doing to make things worse? So she called her husband a monster, and her husband might be a monster. What is she doing to make him more of a monster? Are there things she could do to minimize his monsterness? Right? We need a little monster. I love it.
No, oh my God, a pink monster?
A little pink monster.
Can you imagine? He'd be cute then.
So
no,
cute. No, you can't
we need
be a
like
monster.
a
It's got to be black and
Terrible.
brown and purple and whatever. Okay. No, well, that's actually doesn't sound bad either. Okay, hold
Yeah.
on. So it's very hard to be subjective about yourself. If you yourself don't know what you're doing wrong in the relationship, talk to somebody. It doesn't necessarily have to be a paid therapist. It could be a close confidant, a mentor, a rebbitzin rabbi, clergyman, somebody in your life that you can turn to and say, I just want to let you know, my husband, this is totally confidential. Don't go telling this to 20 people. Tell it to one person and say, this is totally confidential. My husband says these kinds of things. My reaction is this. Am I out of line? What should I do to make it better? If you don't know, you can Google it. You can look up, although, there's so much misinformation on Google too. I was reading something when I was looking for something and it gave such bad advice. Oh my gosh, it was, if you're not, should I leave this marriage or what is something, I don't know, some article and some side thing. And she's like, if you're not self-actualized, then get out. And I'm like, that's the definition of
no joke.
happiness.
Exactly.
That's the definition of whether a marriage works or not. Self-actualized. Yes, hopefully you'll be self-actualized. But if you're not self-actualized, give a little, be kind.
So to develop more self-awareness first,
Yeah.
how she speaks, what does she do? Develop her own self-awareness.
This woman, that's exactly,
yeah,
that's this point.
yeah.
It's to her self-awareness of what she is doing. Exactly right. So here's the thing. Each person is responsible for themselves, right? If you are a victim to your husband's toxic behavior, then you've lost your power. You're just a victim to him. And, my life stinks because he's like that. I hear. It does. It's pretty bad. What can you do? What power do you have that can make things differently? So I'll tell you a story. I had a woman, I'm skipping ahead, but I'm just going to tell you.
Yeah, it's good. It fits in.
It fits in. Okay, fine.
Story time.
Story time. Okay, so, okay. So this woman came to me. She wanted to leave her husband because he spoke too harshly. Okay, she couldn't take it anymore. She he just yells at me, whatever. So I delved into it. I started asking her what happens and whatever. Apparently, they were having conversations, and in the middle of the conversation, he'd want to leave, and I'm like, "What would you do?" And she said, "I tell him you're not leaving this room until we finish." Mm-hmm. P.S. Now what? He's backed into a corner. Mm-hmm. He's complete. This guy is backed into a corner like a rat in a cage. Mm-hmm. So now she starts, telling him, we're going to solve this. We're going to, because I dug. I was like, okay, let's get to the brass tacks. And it turns out she was backing him into a corner. She would say, finish it, try and resolve it. She wasn't being nice. Her tone wasn't nice. What she was saying and putting him on the defensive wasn't nice. And she wanted him to say, oh, you're absolutely right. I'm so sorry. Mm-hmm. That was her expectation. First of all, most guys wouldn't do that. Second of all, most people wouldn't do that. And second of all, most people would just be on the defensive. Mm-hmm. Third of all, whatever all we are on, he needs to feel like he has control of the situation. He needs space. He needs ability to process. Some people are fast processors, women. Mm-hmm. Some people are slow processors, a lot of men. You can vary from thing to thing, but he needed space. So what happened? She would push him, and then he would lash out at her and scream and storm out and be harsh. This was what she wanted a divorce for. I hear. Not pleasant. Should he have controlled himself? Absolutely. We're all works in progress and whatever. And yes, if I was talking to him, I'm like, you can't do that. Totally not acceptable. You can't blast out and scream and leave the room. Got it. But she has a lot of culpability. What's the right word for
Yeah,
culpability?
yeah. She has to be accountable for it, held accountable for what
Yeah.
she's doing, her part.
Yeah. Okay.
Her part in it.
So,
She has
right.
responsibility also.
Right. So it's not only that she has culpability and responsibility, she can change the situation. How she treats him when they're in the middle of in that kind of a fight. If she, listen to this, ladies, this is like gold. If she said the right thing, still got exactly the emotions she wanted him to hear, the same feelings, the same thoughts, the same communication, but she said it in a way he could hear it. Here's the golden thing. He would react exactly the way she wanted him to. Not every time, and it's not perfect. But I'm saying if she's pushing, and he's screaming back, if she just tried saying, listen, I realize this is a touchy subject. I realize there's a conflict, and that there is a potential for me to back you into the corner and for you to be harsh to me and storm out of the room. That would be predictable. And I'm sorry if I'm the one who's doing that. I take ownership for it. So what I'd like to do with you, my sweetheart, my love of my life, what I would like to do is tell you what's upsetting me. I will take 1 minute, then I will shut up, and I will leave the room. And when you want to discuss it, you'll come to me, and we'll work it out. How would that be? How would that, he'd be standing like, are you a stepward wife? Are you,
Exactly.
What happened to my wife? Are you taking
Meds?
drugs? What is it? There is a way to communicate and shift the bad habits in your relationship that can make a powerful difference in the outcome. Okay, fine. Do you have a question? Yeah.
And also maybe if she understood that guys don't like to be blamed. If you blame,
No one likes to be blamed.
Yeah, but especially men.
You get immediately the opposite.
Yeah, they shut down. Yeah, they get very
100%.
resistant.
100%.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, so fine. Okay, where are we now? Okay, so why does everyone say it's the wife's job, whatever? So, I think I discovered that. We need to be, yeah. Okay, fine. The point is, for this woman who's getting divorced, is that if you give up without giving your maximum effort, you're always going to regret it. Like forever. Forever. I know so many women who got the divorce and they're like, look, they're not admitting it to everybody else. They're like, oh yeah, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Oh, that was the best day of my life and whatever. In talking to me and uncovering and going a little deep after about 5 or 10 minutes, they're all like, I don't know what I mean, look, not in abuse situations, but in many, many situations. If I ask them this question, which I don't ask them because it's too painful, did you do everything in your power to make it work? The answer is usually no. Mm-hmm. Some women say, look, Leah, I did everything to try and make it work. I mean, everything, literally everything, and I couldn't make it work. Okay. If they do that for a year and you're in therapy for a year, I hear you have to let the marriage go. It's a tragedy. Yeah. So, okay, let's go on to the next question.
Okay, so with these are, in line. How much hard work should a wife do before she throws in the towel and calls it quits?
Okay, fine. If there's abuse, get out. Gone. Physical abuse, emotional, verbal abuse, gone. Unless you have a really, really good therapist who might be able to patch it up. But abuse is hard to turn around, especially if it's been going on for a very, very long time and he's got a history of abuse. I'm just trying to think if I'm...
No, or you have a husband that is actually willing, like... If he's in abusive, let's say his anger, but he's willing to go into
anger,
intense
marriage therapy,
therapy, and literally he's saying, "I know," and he's taking full responsibility.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, that's the only way that could work. Okay, so how much wife should a work do? So read books or articles on the issues you're trying to do. Seek rabbinic advice. Go to counseling if you've done all of these things. Give it a year.
And how much counseling? A year?
A year
year.
of counseling. I mean,
Okay.
that's not for me.
That's
That's
like-
someone
yeah.
love said
Yeah,
to me.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
a year of counseling. If that doesn't work, then you know what else.
But you have to think about it. You have so many years invested in the marriage, and then in like a month or two, you're like, bye-bye.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah, I've just had it. I hear
Right.
that so much. I've just had it.
Right.
I'm like, you know what, lady? Do you realize now you're so angry at him because he doesn't help around the house, and you have financial troubles, and he spends money wrong, and all these things. Now he's living in his own. You're paying for 2 apartments. Now you have nobody. Before he at least watched the kids a little while you did the dishes.
Right.
Now you're doing everything. Yeah, it's just mind-boggling. Everyone sees the grass is greener on the other side. Hashem cries when there's a divorce. You just have to know that he cries. He cries. He weeps. Okay. If the divorce has to happen or whatever for all the reasons, and the rabbis and all your advisors are saying you have to divorce, okay. But if you haven't left any every stone unturned, you have no business even thinking divorce, because whatever pain you're feeling right now, everyone thinks, oh, when I get divorced, the pain will be gone. No, lady, that's when the pain starts. There's a level of loneliness and failure, and self-esteem just goes through so many issues. I'm not saying not to get divorced. In some cases, it's warranted, and we know from our sages there has to be divorce, and there needs to be divorce, the ability to divorce. I'm just saying, in this day and age, people are getting divorced 10 times faster than they ever did. It's kind of like they don't. It's almost like they didn't even try. And you speak with the older generation, people who are 10, 20, 30 years, in their 80s, 90s, or whatever, and you ask them, like, people just think, it's a disposable society. It's a water bottle, throw it away. It's old cell phone, throw it away. People, it's just a disposable society. The problem is, if you're caught up in a bad marriage, all you're thinking is that one wasn't even in bad. She got divorced, and that one got divorced, and whatever. I'll just be one of those statistics. It's got to be better than this, right? I don't know. Are you going to regret it? Chances are very
And when
high.
they have children, what I found with so many of my friends who are in that situation is when they have children, then they still have to deal with him on a constant basis.
Right. He's in your life
So rather
forever.
than it coming from like a place of a little bit
Let's try
trying
and
to work
work
in
it
love,
out. Yeah.
it's literally altercation the whole time. And they're constantly, they're
And I
there's
had
no
this
end to
woman,
it.
and I think she had 5 kids. She was in her, I want to say late 40s or whatever. And she said, any husband's going to be better than this. And I'm like, she has 3 teenagers and 2 kids under 10. Like, anybody else? Like, where is she going to conjure up this other guy who's going to sweep down?
exactly take 6 kids, her and 6.
Yeah, I just was. It was just this altered reality that she's caught, fantasy that she's caught up in. I'm not saying her life is easy. I'm not saying anyone who's having particularly in a toxic relationship, that life is easy. I hear, for whatever reason, God has chosen this circumstance for you. There is nothing that's going on in your life right now that God Himself didn't put there specifically to help you grow and to get closer to Him and closer to your husband. There's nothing that is going on in your life. You think, well, if I had, because we make our own choices. Well, I had 2 guys I was choosing between. I chose him. I'm the idiot. No, God, there's nothing that happens without the stamp of approval from up above.
Yeah,
So-
my husband actually, in a moment of total, like we were joking around and having a great time and everything, he says, listen, girlfriend, I know you think you're amazing and you're gorgeous and you're smart and talented, blah, 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 but no one's taking you with 6 kids, so forget about it. You're stuck with me. I'm like, okay, I guess so. I guess I'm in it for the long run. No,
Right.
but yeah. He's
And
like,
look,
it's not,
that
it's
can
not
give
simple.
a woman a feeling of feeling trapped, but it can also give her a feeling of, if God put me here, I'm going to make this work. And I promise you, this is a guarantee, not just from Leah Richeimer. I'll guarantee it as well. This is a guarantee from God Himself, that if you put the effort in, He will make miracles, things you thought could never be. My husband's always been harsh, whatever. You put the effort in, you pour love on your husband, and he may not shift overnight, and he may not shift ever, but you will see blessings in your life. It may be with your husband. It might be your kid who was ill now is no longer ill. You will see blessing, and that's a guarantee. Isn't that great? Who gives guarantees and
no
really
joke.
means it?
The Leah guarantee.
Yeah. No, God guarantee.
Exactly.
Okay. So fine. The last point with that lady is that if you don't be one of the people who regret getting out because you didn't do the hard work. Do the hard work. Okay. And if you're in a toxic relationship and you do get out, you have to ask yourself, why did I let myself get into a toxic relationship in the first place? Because that kind of introspection, and that probably would take therapy, because it's hard to be subjective about yourself, to make sure to avoid it in the future. But the most important message here is, don't be one of those people who just sees the grass is greener over there, jumps over there, and then regrets it the rest of their life. Okay, let's go on to the next question.
Okay, so now this is the flip side.
Oh wow, this is like such. Oh my gosh, we're gonna have to barrel through this because it's too important.
It's okay. Okay. This is probably gonna be our last question, and then we'll deal with.
Yeah, but it's a double question. She had another question.
No. It's not. This is the flip side of it. I'm a mentor. Basically, this is how does someone. We've now dealt with someone who's in the relationship, so this is from someone. Number 3 is, I'm a mentor to a woman, and I want to know how to direct a 38-year-old wise woman in an almost 20-year marriage, how to behave towards a husband who's quite self-absorbed, somewhat narcissistic. She's been
narcissistic.
Narcissistic.
Like
yes.
how I correct you on
live
air.
Yeah, you should. By the way, go for it. Yeah, narcissistic.
Okay.
I love it. Thank
okay.
God.
There.
She has been such an Ashes Chal, amazing, a woman of valor, but is not yet willing to go to professional counseling. But she is coming out of denial about his toxic behavior and her own unhappiness by doing research. She's reading books. And she said now she's at the point where she realizes that she's been in a toxic relationship. And how does this woman, who's her friend and her mentor, help her to get through it all and still stay married and not
still
get
stay married?
divorced?
Fine. Okay. So,
so this is for all the people who know of someone who's in a toxic relationship or know of someone who's in a difficult relationship.
Right. But there's also an answer for people who are in a toxic relationship, because there's one very scary thought, which is that most doormats that you see have a welcome sign on it. So if you're being treated like a victim, if you are a victim to somebody else's abuse, what are you doing to say, do you have welcome written on your forehead? It's something to think about. So that would be meaning, that woman who was pushing her husband into a corner, pushing, she was being abused by him because then he was being harsh and yelling and storming out, but she was a complicit in her in the bad vibe, the bad interaction. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so the main thing is, because that was the story that I told them.
That was the story.
Wait a minute.
By the way, there's the story.
There we go.
There's
okay,
the story.
Yeah,
but
okay,
then, how do you help? People.
The perpetrator, the husband in this woman's case, you can tell her that to examine what she might be doing to make the situation worse. This is not blaming the victim. This is saying there's always an action a woman can take to make things better. What is that action? Brainstorm with her, work with her, think about, go through one incident that she had with her husband. Ask her to remember, to tell it over to you. And then he said this, and then what happened? Then I said that, and then what happened? He walked over there. Then have her recount the whole incident to you, and then explain to her, well, when he folded his arms and said, I don't want to talk right now, that was your cue to say something. And rather than saying, come on, you need to talk, what you should have said at that point is, I hear that, but it's really hard for me to drop it right now. But if that's what you need, I'm willing to do that. He would be like, oh, okay. Like, you know what I mean? It's called, there's Seth Godin, I think, wrote a book called Permission Marketing. I think I've got the right. And in his Permission Marketing, he talked about how if the husband is given permission to, hear what you have to say, in other words, that you're giving him permission to share, to be who he is, rather than forcing him to be who you want him to be, that is a big turnaround. And that you could hear the husband just thinking, oh, well, all right, I'll share with you what I'm feeling now. Or, yeah, I really do need a few minutes. But giving him that permission is the greatest gift you can do to shift this toxic behavior. Okay. A couple of things. Sometimes a woman, if you're helping her, or if it's a case for you, self-esteem issues. So read books on self-esteem, go through therapy, talk with friends, learn how to grow your self-esteem. Sometimes a woman will have a past dysfunctional pattern with her father, and so she picks a husband. I had one woman whose father always let her down, and she married a guy who was pretty trustworthy. She kept like, oh ye of little faith. Like she kept talking like, yeah, like really, like you're going to show up. And I'm like, I'm going to show up. She's almost wanting him to be.
She's
familiarity
testing
factor.
or even she's so afraid that he's going to fail her that she's waiting for him to fail her.
That's right. Exactly right. So also this woman that you're mentoring, she might not have the kind of boundaries that are needed. So you need to teach her, this is okay, that's not okay. Also find out a little bit about the dynamic, like what is the most common fight that they're having and where does it repeat itself, and then give her brainstorming ideas of ways to circumvent that. The key that you want to give over is that there's so much a woman can do to heal and repair the relationship, and usually we're so combative and so angry, and we're so in the fight mode that we don't take we don't realize we have so much power. We don't need to fight. And using tools of kindness and softness and saying how you feel and saying, talking about your emotions, saying, it hurts my feelings when this happens. It'll melt your husband's heart. Sometimes it'll make him meaner, so you have to know the situation. And again, a lot of what we're talking about today has to do with trial and error. Just try something. If it works, do more of it. If it doesn't work, try something else until you hit something and you'll get closer and closer.
Yeah, and also I was big, because in this question also in general, I didn't understand, like, when she's writing somewhat narcissistic. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
Narcissistic. Yeah. Now, like narcissistic. Am I saying it right? Yeah.
Okay.
What is that meaning? What is that meaning? Explain that.
A narcissist is somebody who's just always just thinking about themselves. They can't kind of, they see things from their own perspective. They can't put themselves in somebody else's shoes. It's very common in this, unfortunately. Self-centered.
Loves himself too much.
Yeah. But a woman you're saying a woman just, she married him and she's been married for 20 years. Like, that's how he's been from the beginning. It's just so strange for me that she's suddenly waking up to this, like, oh my gosh, he's so self-absorbed.
Sometimes what happens is maybe she's a real tzedekah. She's a real yummy person. She's cooking for him and taking care of him.
She's always giving, you're saying.
And she's always giving, and she's taking care of her kids. And then she realized, it's not. She finds herself feeling that her appreciation bucket is empty. Her being heard. She doesn't feel heard. She doesn't feel connected. There are a lot of things that happen over time that you don't kind of wake up to. I had a friend of mine. She said she came outside and she, her gardener of 18 years, he had blown all the leaves up from her house and all behind the bushes. So instead of cleaning them out and raking them up and putting them away, he kind of blew them all, and they were all there. And
out of sight, out of
mind.
Exactly.
It looked horrible, and it whatever. But so she came out. She said, "Excuse me, Bob, Jim, or whatever. You have why'd you put all the leaves there? It looks terrible, and it's just gonna. No wonder those trees aren't growing so well. They just can't. The mulch and who knows, whatever she said. But she yelled. She was arguing with him, and he said, "Ma'am, you have been this way. It's been that way for 18 years. You never said anything before."
And now you see it.
And she was like looking at him like, and she went and she asked her husband, and she goes, yeah, I've never been so happy with our gardener. And she said, why didn't you say anything or whatever? And she never noticed because she was so busy with changing diapers. She had a lot of little kids for all those years. And one day, I think it was one of her kids went to third grade or something like that. And she suddenly noticed she had a bad gardener. All those years, she never noticed the leaves piling up. So, of course, this woman didn't notice that her husband was self-centered and wasn't really there for her. It just kind of went with the ether of life or whatever. And she didn't notice. Now she's really...
But you offer so many options for a woman to be able to get her husband to give her... she can ask for things. Like, for someone who's narcissistic...
Self-centered.
For someone who's self-centered or self-absorbed, he might just need someone to, like remind him that they're there. Like, it's not that he's purposely trying to be hurtful. He's just in his own world. And if she just
Right. It's actually getting someone out of narcissism is a whole other thing, and it's not such an easy thing to do. But there's coping strategies that you can use to sort of to help you cope with it better and to help grow him bit by bit. It's not something someone snaps out of. They may never snap out of
But you're
it.
saying it's not toxic enough that a person, meaning if he's taking care of her and he's providing for her and he's just self-centered.
Right. It's
But then
kind of
she's
sad.
Right, because then she's left as they get older and what?
Yeah, no, it's a little bit sad, but a lot of people they're getting more and more narcissism as the decades go
of
on.
course.
So
That's what I'm
it's
saying.
a little bit
We're an
challenging.
I generation.
So the issue is, that there has to be certain zero tolerance for certain behaviors, and this is what I was going to say about in terms of if you were in a toxic relationship. It could be that your husband has done something very, very, for years. He has, put you down at the Shabbos table in front of the kids. And suddenly you're realizing, oh my gosh, that's toxic behavior. That's toxic, that's that puts him in the category of a narcissist or whatever. It puts him in a different light. This is much worse than I thought. So that having zero tolerance for that kind of behavior is pretty hard. It's pretty hard, but it's doable. You can do it. If he... What
At the beginning of a relationship, we overlook a lot due to romance. Like before we're married, if we didn't overlook what we overlooked, none of us would be married.
It's true. Yeah, so that's exactly right. So there was kind of this blur, and maybe he got worse with it. But if there's zero tolerance for it, I mean, the way to implement it is getting. And this, I'm going to get now to what you can do if you're in a toxic relationship. So the first thing is zero tolerance. So if your husband has been putting you down in front of the Shabbos table or whatever in front of guests, you can sit him down and you can talk to him, and you can say, listen. For many years now, you've done something that it's really partially my fault for never saying anything, but is there any way you can never put me down in front of whatever at the Shabbos table anymore? And I'm like, I don't do that, however the conversation goes, it's not going to go well because it's going to be on the defensive. But if there's a way for you to just say, look, I think it would mean a lot to me, and I think it's crucial that we need to have a boundary there where you can't put me down in front of other people. And if you do, when you say the bad comment, because it's been a habit for 20 years, I don't expect you to turn on a dime, but if you say the annoying thing, I had one couple, and this is what they said, this is what I coached them in, and she said, at whose expense? Meaning he would make jokes, this was a different scenario, he would make jokes at her expense. Mm-hmm. So I told her to say, when he says it, to get him to zero tolerance, you say, at whose expense? That kind of woke him up. Sometimes. Sometimes he woke him up and he said, oh, I'm joking, and he got better and better over time.
Oh, meaning she would say that.
He would say his comment like.
Oh, while he's making the comment, she would just say at whose expense.
Right. In other words, he would say something like, the food's burned. Yeah, like Mom always does. Mm-hmm. And she would say, at whose expense? And that would be their trigger for him to realize he did it again, and he hurt her feelings. Sometimes that would shut him up. Sometimes he'd roll his eyes, but it did get better.
Right.
But she had a zero tolerance. She herself gained the strength to protect herself, and that ultimately changed his behavior. Well, it never got perfect. I don't think. I mean, that was a few
It's
years
very
ago.
hard. Right. It's very hard to change something that you've been doing for so long.
So back to the situation where she at the Shabbos table, he's putting her down or whatever. If she were to say something like at whose expense, or if she were to say something like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. But that's a little put him down.
Right.
Kick him back in the teeth,
especially if the kids are around.
Yeah, it's like, that's what I'm saying. So I don't know. You have to brainstorm. I didn't quite get that, but you have to brainstorm something she could say, or you could ask him. What can I say when it happens and my feelings are feeling hurt and I'm sitting there steaming and trying to eat my food? What can I say back to you that will work, that you'll be happy with? Maybe I'll say the butterflies just landed out in the backyard. Or something like that. What can I, it depends on the husband, because some husbands are like, say something like that, or talk about airplane, or when's our next vacation. Mm-hmm. I'll know that's my, in front of everybody else, my cute little way, my cue, my cue of how to stop. But the point is, here's the bottom line. You need to have zero tolerance in your own mind. You need to have the self-confidence and the strength to say, I am going, not, this toxic behavior, treating me toxically or whatever, and the buck stops here. If you don't have that strength or that self-confidence or that self-esteem, get yourself supported so that you can have that, either reading a book or therapy or somebody. Get yourself supported. A sister even, you could talk about it, growing yourself to be stronger. So that's first of all. Let me rattle them off. We're almost done here. Okay. You're examining what you're doing that might make it worse and working on that. You're working on low self-esteem so that you can feel worthy of better treatment. Very crucial. You are looking at why you chose toxicity in the first place. There's no accidents in this. You chose him, and was it because it was familiar, because you were treated poorly as a child by bullies or your parents or your father, your mother, siblings, something like that? What has got you the recipient of bad behavior? Understanding that will really help you to rise above it and move beyond it. Learned boundaries of how to protect yourself. If a lot of these issues come because a woman can't, look, we're taught reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's mind-boggling that there isn't communication also taught in schools. Like, it's the most important thing for our happiness. The most important thing most important thing for our happiness, because that is getting close to God is the ultimate thing, and that is through our relationship with our husband and our relationship with the people around us. So that's the most important thing. But the most important tool. You can go very well in life not knowing math very well. Yeah, you might mess up your bank account. You might whatever. The reading, that would be a shame, but you could get through life. Reading, writing, you could get away. All those. Communication, you can't communicate with your husband about what's bothering you. You're living in misery. You're living in misery. So communication, if anybody who's listening to this wants to take on the schools and make it the fourth thing,
no joke.
okay,
Yeah.
good luck. I'll support you, I'll help you, whatever, but it needs to be done. But in any case, learn communication tools. That's going to help you so much.
Watch our show from last week.
Yeah, we had a whole
That was a
workshop
comedy hour all on communication.
Yeah, that's it. The comedy show. Okay, the communication comedy show. Okay, very good. Let's see. Get supported, introspection, teachers, books, a support group. That's another thing we haven't talked a lot about is you can have therapy, which is very costly or whatever. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes insurance pays for everything. Who knows? You have to look around and figure that out. But a support group are often very reasonable, and you can look them up. There's free groups meeting, as long as it's a positive group. There are groups that sit around and make. I know somebody went to a grief group and they came back more depressed than when they went. You have to see, you have to try the dynamics and bolster yourself for that. But that is another really good thing. There's journaling, there's meditation. Sometimes just having that introspection to strengthen yourself. There's mindfulness to help you strengthen yourself so that you can have the strength to have zero tolerance. Instagram's going. Okay,
the Instagram is going in 30 seconds.
Put a value on put a value on your own introspection and make time for it. Okay, that's it for toxic relationships. Thank you for joining us. This is Leah Richeimer, the Ladies Talk Show. We'll see you next time.